Tropical air and a southwest flow continue to bring waves of moisture up the eastern seaboard, and we'll take a look at the latest wave that will be approaching for overnight into the first part of Wednesday. There will be a humidity break coming up, but as all things in the summer, all the good things in the summer, they don't last, and we might have some heat coming back early next week. We'll talk about that, everything else that's going on across the nation. And we'll take a quick look at the tropics. That's all coming up right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Tuesday night, the 23rd of July. Brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use that coupon code Joe Rayo,
which is, of course, summer 2024.
because if you do, you will get.
10% off.
So, good evening.
Good evening, or as Alfred Hitchcock would say, good evening.
Yes. Oh, and then, by the way, we were talking about Amazon Prime off camera because they added, uh, I don't go on there very often, but they added um, all these local TV stations on there, all these local channels, and they've got under TV Classics, they have 24 hours nonstop of all these different shows, like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Real McCoys, all these classic TV shows. So if you haven't checked your Amazon Prime lately, do so because you'll want to watch TV news in Los Angeles. They've got the Los Angeles stations, the Chicago stations, the New York stations, et cetera, et cetera.
My God, the real McCoys. I haven't thought about that show in God knows how many years.
Me too. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background, SPC and WPC. You know who you are. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. We're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 with the occasional Friday and Saturday if a deluge and devastation are imminent. And if we do add a show, we'll let you know. And of course, if you like the show, be sure to hit the like button and make sure your notifications on so you don't miss us. So I've been saying how dry it's been here in North Georgia, and it has been. We or it had been. We had, I think, only 2.5 inches of rain for the month of June, and you have to realize the further south you go, and the higher, with the sun angle being higher here, even though temperatures may not be necessarily warmer, as I've proved many times, than it is in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, when the sun is out, the ground gets dry very, very quickly. So you could have a normal month of rainfall, but if it all comes in one day, the rest of the time you wind up, your ground is pretty much baked to cement. Well, in the last 8 days, the last 7 days, I've gotten over 5 inches of rain. And my monthly total now for July, we still have 8 more days, 7.10 inches. So I'm a happy camper, Joe. So I don't have to go out in the yard and move the sprinkler around and water the yard. Nature's doing it for me, but it's been raining quite a bit here lately.
Yeah, well, be careful what you wish for, Joe. As
No,
I've
I know.
said often, Mother Nature likes to balance the checkbook, but she balances it in strange ways. So there may come a time, I hope it does not happen for you, but
Right,
you,
with big deposits and big withdrawals.
what I'm saying is there may come a time where you're saying, please, enough already. Stop it.
Well, it's not continuous, thankfully. So there's, large, like most of this morning. And the other upside's been, oh, it's been so nice. I don't think I got, what did I get to today? 73 or 74? I think that was my high today, after a low of 67. I mean, it just is nice and it's, bearable, even though it's humid outside. If it's in the low 70s and humid, you can sort of take it. But this is all because of all this tropical moisture that's across much of the South, and some of that moisture has been coming up in waves and these ripples that have been moving along in the southwest flow. And you saw some rain last night And now we got another wave that's coming up for later tonight and for the first part of Wednesday.
It looks like that wave that's coming up for later tonight will be mostly concentrated in areas from New York City and points east and south. I may not get very much. I mean, there'll be some showers around, but the heaviest amount, the heavy axis of rain, looks like it's going to be concentrated just to south. Now, last night was a different story. Sometime around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it was coming down very hard for about an hour or so. I can't tell you how much because and I don't know how many people from the Tempest, uh, company is listening right now. I may just go with the weather station that we've been promoting here for the past couple of years, Joe. I have a Davis weather station I've had for the last few years. This is my second Davis station, and the only thing that goes wrong with this weather station is the tipping spoon, which when the
Yep.
water goes into the rain gauge, it goes into the tipping spoon. The spoon then turns a certain way and registers how much rainfall. And sometimes when there's very heavy rain on the screen, it says it's raining cats and dogs. Well, it was raining cats and dogs last night. In fact, it was raining cats and dogs a couple of times last week. And you know what's on my rain gauge? 0.00. So the tipping spoon, as was the case with the first weather station that I had and wasn't able to correct, is stuck.
Well,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
last thing
Finish
I
up.
want to do is it's on a mast. The weather station is it's on a mast about 16 or 18 feet above ground, which means I'd have to get the little giant ladder that I use to put up the Christmas lights and somehow steady it up against the mast, climb the mast, and get the weather. What a pain in the you know what.
Hmm.
So
Well,
maybe it.
Joe, just as a reminder, the link is pinned to the description to this podcast. And if you use the coupon code, if you use
Um,
the coupon code summer
2020.
2024, you'll get 10% off. I've heard that someplace,
Yes,
so I thought I'd pass that on to you.
yes. Well, thank you for.
Actually, not to make this, obviously it's a wonderful opportunity. None of this was planned, so uh, it's a shameless self-promotion. But the beauty of this, at least for me, because I don't like to climb ladders or do anything like that, it's all digital. You just put it anywhere that you have to put it somewhere where it gets at least 6 hours of sun because it runs on a solar battery, and
Well, the
and
same
then
thing
you,
is with It's the same thing with the weather station I have. The Davis weather station runs off of solar power. There's a battery that's constantly recharging, and yes, um, on my little display in our TV room where I check out the email, it's all digital there. But it's just that that stupid tipping spoon gets stuck, and this is obviously a chronic problem because this is my second Davis weather station, and this is the second time that I've had to deal with this kind of. And eventually, what happens eventually, I don't know, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be next month. It eventually straightens itself out and fixes itself, and the spoon will come back and we'll start getting readings again. But, you know, I'm missing out on some really big numbers. Yeah, I missed out this morning. Like I said, I can't tell you how much I got in terms of rainfall, but it sounds like there was a pretty hefty amount for about an hour or so. And because of the fact that we have such humid conditions now, I would assume that any shower that passes through your neighborhood, folks, in the tri state area over the next couple of days has the potential to put down quite a bit of rainfall and maybe even bring some localized flooding.
yep. So we don't want to turn this into an hour-long infomercial. So let's uh, let's roll with the punches here and take a look at what's going on. Speaking of showers and downpours, actually, with all the moisture that is around, there's not a whole lot. There's hardly any with anything at all with regards to flood watches. There's just a couple that have been put up for some counties in northeastern Virginia and on the Maryland side of Virginia, the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. We've got some flash flood watches there. And also in southeast Texas, including Houston and Galveston and points south and west. But again, it's just a handful of places. We've seen a couple of flash flood warnings today and some flood advisories, and that's really been about it so far. Meanwhile, in the west, it's hot. And we've got some stagnant air too in some places. We've got fog advisories in up in eastern Colorado, or air quality alerts. And I only check to make sure, see what they are. They're air quality alerts with an upper high there. The air's getting kind of stagnant. And also up in Wyoming, we've got various excessive heat warnings and red flag warnings and heat advisories there. But much of the plains and points eastward to the East Coast, nothing, nothing adverse at the moment. A lot of what's been going on, as Joe pointed out just now, is going to be localized. You might get it, but a friend of yours in another town might not, or they might get far less. Um, we see lightning strikes going on. Nothing that's really concentrated. There's sort of scattered areas of lightning strikes in southeast Virginia and North Carolina, parts of North Georgia, back through Alabama and Mississippi, and down into coastal Texas. It's more about the downpours. And if you look at the cloud motion from the Gulf of Mexico, turning northeastward, running up through the Tennessee and Lower Ohio Valley, and then kind of heading right over southern New England and southeastern New England and points east. So, this tropical flow is going to be persistent, Joe, until we get a cold front, which will be approaching from the west, and kind of flatten out the Bermuda Ridge that's causing this southwest flow, and that may finally bring a humidity break for Friday and for the weekend.
Well, again, it's not going to be a big drop in the humidity, but again, everything is relative. It is so very humid out there again today, and will be for the next couple of days. I think we'll be able to get the dew points down into the 50s, upper 50s at least on Friday, and may go back into the low 60s over the weekend. But again, when you make a comparison to what we're dealing with right now, that'll feel okay compared to what we've got at the moment with these high dew points and very humid conditions. The only saving grace, also, the fact that we have so much cloud cover, that's holding the temperature down. We're not dealing with what we were dealt last week, with those temperatures way into the 90s, and even in a few cases hitting or even exceeding 100. No, it's not going to be that way this week. It'll be muggy. It will be uncomfortably muggy, but again, we'll take care of all of that with the next cold frontal passage and the next drop in the dew point category later on in the week.
We also have an upper trough that's moving across the western Great Lakes, and you can see there's a little tail of showers and storms moving through parts of eastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois. Also, just want to point out in the west, you'll notice that the clouds are actually turning anticyclonically around the upper high that's out there. And as a result, you're getting thunderstorms on the edge of it in the central Colorado down into New Mexico. Those are moving from north to south. And you're also getting some thunderstorms that are popping up on the western side of the ridge in California, in the Sierra Nevadas. And those thunderstorms are moving from south to north. So you always got a lot of phenomena that's going on, and it's always a good idea to pay attention to what the satellite. If you don't look at anything else, you just look at the satellite. You can just pretty much figure out, how things are moving in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, on the radar tonight, got some. Let me make sure I got the latest one, and I do. We've got some scattered showers in upstate New York and up in northern Vermont and New Hampshire. A few downpours there. But then we head down into Virginia, where we have some heavier downpours, an odd severe thunderstorm warning that pops up uh, in right along the Virginia North Carolina state line, about halfway across. And we've got a cluster of some heavy downpours moving through Chesapeake Bay into the lower portions of the Delmarva Peninsula. We are seeing more clusters and a bit more widespread activity in western North Carolina, western South Carolina, northern Georgia. Looks like I might have some heavier rain coming here soon. It looks like a little yellow patch there that's approaching me north of Atlanta. And there's a narrow flash flood warning that's up from Atlanta east right along I-85, which is, it's coming to the end of the rush hour. So I'm sure there's probably a mess going on over there. There's a heavy concentration of thunderstorms around Birmingham in Alabama. along I-20 and 66 that goes from south to north. I think it's 60. Is it 66? I don't remember. And then back to Mississippi, where we've got some cluster showers and storms in the central and southern part of the state. The northern part of the state actually is on the dry, been on the dry side. They've got some drought issues there, but the rest of the state is fine. Southeast Louisiana seeing some stuff, western Louisiana, and a bunch of southeast and south Texas. There were a bunch of flash flood warnings up north and west of San Antonio earlier today, but those are now pretty much done. And you can see what's going on here in the west. And we've got showers again. The rotation here is actually clockwise around the upper high that is out there. Storm Prediction Center. One big plus, Joe, through all of this right now is we're actually seeing the risks for severe weather calming down considerably, which is normally what happens this time of year. We just have marginal risks around uh, eastern and southern Virginia into central and western North Carolina. Actually, kind of pushes even to parts of eastern North Carolina near I-95. Another narrow marginal risk area in eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and another one in southernmost Nevada, southeast California, and western parts of Arizona. And no elevated tornado risk to the 2% level. Tomorrow, it's a marginal risk from western New York to northern Ohio, marginal risk in the west from Oregon to Montana, and a marginal risk in parts of southern Arizona and southwest New Mexico. And day three, Joe's the day the cold front comes through, and they don't have a risk area indicated here. They have the general thunderstorm area indicated, but they don't have any marginal risk. And I was reading the discussion from earlier today saying that the amount of destabilization uh, is is uh, is on the weak side for Thursday, which is why they're not putting a risk area at this time. And I guess this goes to what you said earlier about the fact that with all these clouds, you're not getting the kind of supercharged daytime heating that you'd otherwise would get.
Right. We're not going to, that those clouds are going to help to hold the temperature down rather significantly, as was the case today. So if we continue on that note right on through Thursday, yeah, there'll be some convection and yeah, there'll be some thunder shower activity, but it's not going to be of the type that is going to produce anything in terms of severe weather. Although, again, because of the humidity being so high, any one given shower could bring down a heavy amount of rain in a relatively short interval of time. I believe Jason Fox asked on our chat board about what ASOS is, ASOS. What does that stand for? And that is the Automated Surface Observing System. And it's a tri agency program consisting of the National Weather Service, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. It is and the Department of Defense. And basically, these are automated systems. Back in the good old days, guys and gals at airports would take hourly observations. Now, with increasing numbers across the United States, we're seeing these meteorological terminal air reports, or what we know as METARs, taking the place of what used to be reports taken by real human beings. And so ASOS is a automated system, and it sounds like a great thing, but sometimes it's not so great. For example, um, during the wintertime, back in the day, during big snowstorms, you had people going out physically and measuring and giving reports such as the 904 group, the amount of snow that was on the ground. Or during a storm, you'd see maybe something like 1/3/5, 1 inch of snow in the last hour, 3 in the last 3 hours, 5 in the last 6 hours. You don't get that with ASOS. You can't. ASOS doesn't have an automatic arm that stretches out and sticks a ruler into the snow to tell you exactly how much snow is on the ground. And also, I believe when the amount of cloud cover is above 12 or 15,000 feet. There may be clouds in your sky. You may have a completely overcast sky with clouds at 15 or 16,000 feet, but ASOS doesn't account for that. ASOS will say sky is clear, which, if you're somebody like myself, who is into astronomy and wants to know where there's clear weather so I can use my telescope, if it's, 15,000 foot overcast, and yet here is the ASOS telling me that it's clear, that don't do me all that good. So it's ASOS is good. Yeah, Rich Rothmansky, ASOS goes clear above 12,000 feet. So if there's any, if there are clouds, let's say at 13 or 15,000 feet, it'll tell you it's clear when it's really not clear, which is not all that great. Bring
Yeah.
back the bring back the real human element of weather observations, but that isn't likely to happen now that these METARs and the ASOS data flow is been increasing across much of the United States in recent years.
And Rich also points out, and I agree with him, a lot, not all, but some of these ASO stations, the temperatures they put up are too high. They're just simply too high. Uh,
Yeah,
so I try to, when I'm looking around, when I'm looking on the hazards map, and I can just move the mouse over the number, it'll tell you, whether the station or what, if it's a full human run reporting station or if it's an ASOS. And I find that more often than not, sometimes you get these really odd. We saw that last week with the heat where it was nobody was over 100, and there was that one station or actually most people were around 100 in the Washington in Maryland and northeastern Virginia, 100, 101, and you got there was that one ASO station up there in northern Maryland that was at 105. So, just stood out like a sore thumb. So you definitely have to be careful with regards to with some of the stations and the information that they put out. So I always check around the surrounding areas to make sure if that whatever number they're reporting makes sense. Meanwhile, as far as rainfall is concerned, we're looking at uh, generally that's this is where the the WPC map, the forecast map is, I always put up the 7 day forecast, usually use the 7 day forecast map of rainfall. It's useful, but the problem is that in the summertime, when you have these convective situations, yeah, okay, so somebody could get a quarter to a half an inch, and then they've got areas of a half to 3 quarters in upstate New York. But as we point out in these sorts of setups, that you could easily wind up with double and sometimes even triple the amounts that are being forecast because this sort of gives you a smoothed out view of what could happen. But when you're dealing with convection, you get under a slow moving thunderstorm, and I guarantee you're not just going to get a quarter of an inch. Uh, Rainfall amounts, which have been significant, will have from southeast Virginia down through Texas, will continue to see that those rainfall numbers pile up. So an additional several inches from southeast Virginia into South Carolina. We're looking at 2 inches plus, another 2 inches plus possible in much of Georgia, inch and a half to 2 inches across parts of most of Alabama, parts of Mississippi, and then it picks up again in a big way where we're talking about an additional 5 to maybe 7 inches for the coastal bend of Texas into southwest Louisiana. The rainfall out in the west is nothing really impressive. There are a few pockets in Colorado, where we're looking at a half to 3 quarters, and in parts of central and southeast Arizona, where we're looking at 3 quarters of an inch to an inch and a half plus, and that extends over into eastern New Mexico. And again, these are 7 day uh, forecasts, and WPC this the flash flood risk is marginal, but runs from New England all the way down to northern Florida and then west into Texas. And you've got two areas of slight risk, which is a 15 to 40% chance. Southeasternmost Virginia, much of North Carolina except the Northwest, all of South Carolina, much of Georgia except for the west and northwest and the southern part of the state. That area is in marginal, and the slight risk also for southwest Louisiana and the coastal bend of Texas. So we're waiting for a change in the upper flow, which right now is southwesterly, and it's going to come. You see this trough that is in the western Great Lakes will eventually swing through the east later on Thursday and push a cold front through. I would tend to, Joe, I'm looking at this upper air. I mean, that's a decent short wave that's moving through. Um, except for the fact that you're probably going to be dealing with not a lot of daytime heating, probably takes away the idea of a slight risk for severe weather. But I still think we could probably see an area of marginal risk that might be indicated, and you probably won't see SVC do that until maybe Thursday, the actual day. And after that goes by, I mean, we should get a little push here of some drier air, but that air is not, you know, that air is not that cool. And we get into a ridge position early next week here in the east. And I think we're probably going to get into some heat again for at least a few days next week.
And I would agree on that. And unfortunately, for those who don't particularly care for it, next week the Climate Prediction Center has much of the Northeast outlined in a moderate risk of excessive temperature, excessive heat. Not just a slight chance, but a slight chance would be 20%. Moderate is 40%. And that again covers much of the Northeast, taking us right on into the opening days of August. So we may be looking at a return. I mean, this week we don't really have it because of the cloud cover and the threat of ongoing threat of showers. But next week we may very well be seeing or looking at a siege of rather hot days, not just here in the tri-state area, but through across much of the northeastern United States.
Just as an example of what we're talking about with these downpours, William Uber and Tom Contino, and I know the area, both the areas where they live, and they're not that far apart. It's just a matter of a handful of miles, and with these downpours, Tom got 4/10 of an inch, and Bill, who's 3 miles from him, got 1.125 inches. So that's the convective nature of what we're dealing with. So you see what the GFS has tonight kind of matches up pretty well with the radar that we showed you earlier. And here comes that wave. The GFS, one thing that happened last night, Joe, was that uh, there was heavier rain that fell pretty far north and west of where the models were tracking it. And the GFS has a main area that goes across New Jersey to Long Island and southern New England, but it does have some rain in eastern Pennsylvania and northwest New Jersey that it develops. So we'll see whether that's true or not. Also, you could see a lot of, quite a bit of rain overnight in East Texas and Louisiana and into Mississippi, and that gradually shifts over during the day tomorrow into Alabama and over me. So I'm not done with it. And then we just wait for the cold front to come through sometime late Thursday with maybe one last round of showers and storms. And then after that, that high builds in and we get the humidity break. But here's where it gets a little confusing because you tell people, okay, a cold front's coming through and they think it's going to get colder. But in reality, because of the fact that you're going to have sunshine behind this front, the temperatures are going to be warmer after the frontal passage. It's just that the air is going to be drier. So, just sort of that's just how it works in the summertime, anyhow. And then next week, I'm going to just switch over to with that ridge building in the east and the high goes offshore. Uh, Probably going to start to see things heat up beginning on Monday and then going into Tuesday and Wednesday. We get into a west southwest flow. And maybe there'll be some thunderstorm chances along the way next week during the afternoon and evening hours, as the models indicates that. But it does look like we're going to get into some heat here for, I would say, probably at least 3 days next week, if not longer.
Vincent Croce is saying we have a shot at the record for most 90-degree days here in New York City. Vincent, I will staunchly disagree with you on that.
You got a
The
long
record
way to go.
We have a long way to go. The number of 90-degree days, the record for most 90-degree days, has been matched in 2 years, in 1991 and 1993. That number was 39. I think so far we've had 17 or 18 90-degree days. So what you're saying is that we're going to have to pile up another 20 or 21 more 90-degree days between now and, let's say, early or mid-September, and I don't see that happening. I really don't. So I don't think that we'll certainly have above normal number of 90-degree days in New York. Now I would go with Rob Friedowitz. Rob is like the Mr. Fanatic in terms of weather statistics. He says the normal for New York Central Park normal number of 90-degree days is 17. I saw Lonnie Quinn last week, and he is using, and I don't know where he got this number from. He's saying 15 is the normal number of 90-degree days in New York. I think that's off. I would go with Rob's 17, but still, even though we will go above that, we will go above 17 90-degree days for the summertime. I doubt very much if we're going to approach or break the 39. That is the, again, record number of 90-degree days in a single season or single year, and that again was set twice in 1991 and 1993. Reuben Fairchild talking about extreme heat in the Middle East, and he says, has it been discussed yet the superheat in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia? I saw a news alert of potential 150 degrees. Is this real? It is real, but it's not ambient air temperature, Reuben Fairchild. It's heat index of 140 to 150 degrees. Now, let me just say, that's right there. To say even a heat index of 140 or 150 degrees is like mind blowing. But the actual ambient air temperature in places like in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, Luxor, for example, or Egypt, the if you go for like 110, 115 degrees for the actual air temperature, then the dew points have to be something like 80 or 85 to get that heat index all the way up to like 140 or 150 degrees. So, yes, it is real, but it's not actual temperature. It's the way you feel. It's a heat index of 140 to 150. And thank God I don't live in Luxor or Saudi Arabia. I don't know what I would do if I had to deal with that on a regular basis.
By the way, speaking of the heat, I got the GFS's temperature, map up, and yeah, it's going to get hot, but it's also going to get very hot in the plains, where we got temperatures going over 100 in South Dakota on Friday, and not so much on Saturday. I mean, you got an area of mid and upper 90s, but then as we go through Sunday and into next week, we see an area of temperatures over 100 in Kansas, in southern Nebraska, into Oklahoma, and then expands even more on Tuesday, pushes up into North Dakota on one end and into North Texas on the other, and that's where I think you're going to wind up with the biggest heat, because over time next week that upper high is going to shift westward, so that it moves over into the plain state. So it looks like a pretty uh, robust heat wave here for the plains, south to north, for later next week. And then again, as that ridge shifts to the west later next week, it eventually moves even further west, and you start to get into some pretty big numbers in California, in Arizona, up into Idaho, as far north as Idaho, central and western Washington. They got 100 plus highs in central and western Washington state, 100 plus highs in central and western eastern Washington, and central and eastern Oregon. So it starts out in the plains, it kind of migrates more to the west. So yeah, we'll get 90s for several days next week, depending on cloud cover and depending on how much thunderstorm activity we have. But you've piqued my curiosity, because I can get. Let me see if I can get the map from there around Saudi Arabia. Uh, Here's the Middle East. So let's take a look. Okay, so you have to just kind of go with the flow here because it's in Celsius. So let me just roll it back. So all of this area here that you see in white and the blue that's inside of the white, so those are highs in the now these are every 6 hours, so we're not getting the actual high temperatures here. You have to kind of guess. Well, this one's close. 12Z Sunday. So I guess if you adjust for time, saying these are the highest numbers showing up at 12Z. Okay, so you're looking at numbers in Celsius like 45, 46, 47. So 40 is 104. So 45 would be 113, and 50 would be 122. So that's for Sunday, Monday. It's desert there. It's going to be hot every day. And just for laughs, Joe, oh, there's no dew point map, so I can't look at the dew points. But there's let's put it this way. There's little temperature change that you have to worry about from day to day. It's pretty much the same uh, for the going forward.
I would not be able to stand that. I don't know how anybody could. Boy, I tell you, it's you want hot. There's hot right there. That's where it's all at. I have a sharing, Joe, from the Climate Prediction Center. This is the map that I mentioned earlier. Hey, take a look. Now, this is the risk of hazardous temperatures. This was forecast made from the Climate Prediction Center today at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, valid for July 31st through August the 6th. The 31st is a week from tomorrow. That's Wednesday, the 31st of July, taking us through into August the 6th. I would have to say that at least 85% of the country, 85% of the contiguous United States, is underneath some kind of an alert or risk for hazardous temperatures. The worst place to be is right here in this zone. The excessive heat is high. The probability is high for places like Oklahoma, the Texas Oklahoma panhandle, most of Oklahoma, Kansas, portions of eastern Colorado, and right along the Kansas Nebraska line, and into western sections of Missouri and northwestern Arkansas. There is a 60% chance of excessive heat between the 31st of July and the 4th of August. And in this zone right here, if you're looking for places that will be at or above 100, this is probably where it's going to happen during that time frame. As I said, here in the Northeast, we are under a moderate probability for heat, excessive heat. That's a 40% chance. And as you can see, that covers all of New England and much of, well, all of Pennsylvania, down to Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, northern sections of Virginia, and portions of northern and eastern West Virginia. This is going to be a spell of hot weather from the 31st through August the 6th. And I feel bad. I'm not this weekend, but next weekend is um, the annual gathering of stargazers and amateur and professional astronomers and telescope makers in Springfield, Vermont, known as Stellafane. I will be there. Renato will be there. Dennis Cassia and his wife Kim, who have a big hand in helping to organize that, will be there. There's nothing worse than having to deal with extreme or excessive heat. I hope this forecast is wrong, but it looks like it's going to be pretty hot for that upcoming weekend, next weekend.
Well, let's hope you get a break.
Yes, hopefully we will.
Well, I just want to take a look at the tropical Pacific because the Eastern Pacific, because here we are at almost, we only have a little over a week left to the month of July, and we have only had one named storm in the Pacific, Aletta, back a few weeks ago. And I mean, it basically was a tropical storm for about 5 minutes. And that's been it. There's been an complete lack of activity. Now, they point out, there's two tropical waves. If you look on the right, you can see them. One's off the coast of Mexico, the other one is further out. Disorganized showers and storms, and both of these systems, because of the upper air conditions, uh, are only marginally conducive, but they both have a low chance of developing over the next 7 days, if they're even around for that long. So it's just been extremely quiet in the Pacific. I mean, by now they usually would, just about a normal year, they certainly would have had uh, three or four or even five named storms, and they've just had the one. And then very quickly, we'll just look at the Atlantic and take a look. And we looked at this yesterday, so I might as well look at it again today. And let me just add some frames to this. The big problem has been the dust. And on this shot here, you can see that there's a hell of a lot of it and it's actually quite obvious. Take a look on the loop. You can see this milky area in the eastern part of the Atlantic. There are a couple of waves that are just to the south of this zone of Saharan dust. Two small concentrations, but this is from the intertrop. You're from 10 degrees north. Uh, the intertropical convergence zone, which is the area where you see these waves, that's down closer to 5 degrees north, down to about the equator. It's too far south for these things to spin up. Every once in a while, you get an odd situation. We've seen it happen. Every once in a while, one of them will spin up. But at the moment, the zone of development is just too far south. We'll have to wait to see if it shifts back up to the north, which is where it was at the end of June when Beryl formed. And of course, we'll have to also see whether this dust situation changes, because all this is the Saharan dust and all this dry air that's in the Atlantic is, at least at the moment, is not conducive to tropical cyclone formation. But it won't be like that for much longer. Probably in a couple of weeks, it'll be gone, and we'll probably start to see things rev up on the Atlantic side. Do you have Briller Jeopardy tonight, or do I?
I believe I do, and I
You
just wanted to
do.
point out Chuck Cardillo pointing out that it seems like La Nina is a lot weaker than had been predicted. And I should point out that the very latest from NOAA says that the ENSO, neutral, we're in a neutral situation right now. No La Nina, no El Nino. We're in a neutral situation, and that is actually expected to continue for the next several months, with La Nina favored to finally emerge sometime during August to October. There's a 70% chance of that, and then persist into the Northern Hemisphere winter of 2024, 2025. But right now, we're in a neutral situation. We do not have a La Nina going on right now, and it looks like that's going to be the story, at least until we get into August, which is only another week or so away, but it may not be until October. So maybe part of the reason, along with the fact that we have all that dust out there from the Sahara overlying the Atlantic basin, is that the La Nina, which everybody's saying, oh my goodness, La Nina, that means there's going to be enhanced hurricane and tropical activity, and it's going to be incredible, all the hot water. Well, so far, La Nina has yet to rear its ugly head, and we shall wait and see how long it will be before we get into that. Yes, I think I do have La Nina, not La Nina. I do have Driller Jeopardy, and I'm going to get it right now. Okay, hold on for a second. And we will get Mr. Briller's latest contribution here. Oh my goodness. All right. Once again, all of a sudden we're getting into politics. We're not getting into weather anymore. We got another political Briller Jeopardy. Joe, this is interesting. Can you name the last 20 U.S. presidents in order? Do not Google. And Joe, you could do
In 20, the last 20?
the last 20 in order.
All
And
right.
he
So
says we could do 10 a night if you'd like. I think that would be preferable. Trying to get all
all
20.
right. So let me give this a try. But I got to do it. Well, I'm going to try to do this backwards. Let me see. Let me see if I start. Let me start with um. Okay. Uh. Okay. Let's see. I'll start with Woodrow Wilson. All right. Then I'll
Okay,
go Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover,
very good.
Roosevelt, Roosevelt, right?
Right,
Eisenhower. I'm sorry, Roosevelt, Truman,
right,
Eisenhower, Kennedy,
right.
Nixon. I'm sorry, Kennedy, LBJ, Johnson, um, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush one, Clinton, Bush two, um, Obama, uh, uh, Trump, Biden.
Unbelievable. You got them all, except for one thing, Joe.
I Wilson,
You
so I had
started
to go one back.
yeah,
Okay, so before Wilson, I'm trying to think. Hold on. What was Teddy Roosevelt, right?
no,
No, there was one in between.
yeah, the one
There,
that
there
came
was
before.
one. There was Roosevelt, then there was one in between. He served one term. Um,
Well, Wilson was number 28 and Harding was 29. Who was 27?
I'm trying to think. It's the president that's between Wilson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Woodrow Wilson,
And Rich Watmansky, Frank R., and Patrick Darcy got it.
and that was
Taft.
Taft. Okay, William Howard.
But but still, I applaud you. You were able to go all the way back to Wilson. You said you prefer to go backwards, and you got Wilson all the way up through the current administration. Very, very good.
No, I was a history buff.
Yeah, and
I loved history. Loved American history. I loved European history even more, but I really enjoyed that. I always enjoyed history. I also took political science courses. So, really enjoyed it. So I got to prove how smart I am.
yeah, I would have. And I say this honestly, I probably would have been able to go as far back as Coolidge, and then that would have been, then after that would have been a sheer guesswork. But from Coolidge on, if I went backwards like you did, I think I would have gotten all of them as well.
Um, Mr. Fairchild, the problem with going in and start taking out European countries and talking about the last 20 prime ministers, you've got countries in Europe where the prime minister lasts for like 5 minutes because they're having elections every other day. So be, be thankful you live in the United States where you only have to go through this torturous process every 4 years instead of whenever they decide to call an election because of the parliamentary systems that they have. So anyway, don't I think that pretty much covers it tonight.
Incidentally, if you want to really get into something interesting historically, and it's on YouTube, if you go to YouTube, type in the following: "I've got a secret, comma, um, uh, uh, Lincoln assassination."
Okay.
And if you do that on the game show, I've got a secret back in 1955 or 56. Joe, you'll like it because on the panel that night, um, Lucille
Was
Ball,
Mrs. Lincoln.
excuse me,
Was Mrs. Lincoln.
not Mrs. Lincoln, no, but they had a guy as one of the guests who had, and his secret was that he was in the audience at Ford's Theater the night when John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln and saw him jump out of the balcony and onto the stage. He was only like 5 years old. And now here's this old man who Gary Moore had to help onto the stage. He was something like 97, 96 years old or whatever, but he was the last living person who had witnessed the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And it was fascinating to watch. Fascinating to watch. And you if again, it's on YouTube.
I'll have to
All you
take a
have to do,
look.
I've got a secret, comma, Lincoln assassination, and you'll be able to see that. And again, Lucille Ball happened to be on the panel that night, along with Henry Morgan and who else was there? Bill Cullen
Hmm.
uh, and
Dorothy Kilgallen.
Dorothy Kilgallen was on "I've Got a Secret." I mean, no, excuse me. What's My Line?
What's my line? Okay.
What's My Line and "I Got a Secret" were fairly similar.
Right.
They were both Goodman Todman game shows, and they were both highly rated. And but that you want to look at something historic, and also on "I've Got a Secret," Joe. This is another historic thing. When Neil Armstrong the day that Neil Armstrong officially became an astronaut with NASA, this was like 1963. What they did was they flew Armstrong's parents to New York from Wapakoneta, Ohio, to appear on "I've Got a Secret" that night. And the panel had to guess what the two parents, what was their secret. They had to guess that their son was an astronaut. But even more amazing is that after they had guessed that he was an astronaut, Gary Moore says to Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong, "I will have to ask you, what would you think if your son was to be the first man to walk on the moon?" This is 1963. This was 6 years before Armstrong actually became the first man to walk on the moon. And here's Gary Moore asking the parents of Neil Armstrong, what would you think if your son was, let's say, the first man to walk on the moon? When I saw that for the first time, I almost fell off my chair and blew away. And that too is on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and go, "I've Got a Secret, Neil Armstrong's Parents," you'll be able to see that for yourself as well. A couple of historic, pieces of, a couple of pieces of history on what normally is thought to be a low grade TV, you know, nothing like on PBS or whatever like that. A game show. Who would you think they
Right.
would do that on a game show? But these two things were on a game show back in the 1950s and early 60s. So check it out. I think you'll really get a kick out of that.
And when Lucy was asked the question, um, when Lucy and Ricky were asked the question when they were on the radio show to try to win a prize, and the question
With Freddie
she
Fillmore,
had the answers and she stole the answers, but they switched the questions. Right. So what was it? What is a congressman's? How long is a congressman's term of office?
the sap runs
The
every
SAP
two.
runs every 2 years. Uh,
By the way, Ricky Desi Arnaz also appeared that night as the celebrity guest on that "I've Got a Secret" with Lucy. And incidentally, the first contestant who came out before the person who witnessed the Lincoln assassination, the first person who came out was the one who built or made the chairs that Gary and the guests and the panelists were sitting on. And that particular person, the company that made the chairs, was from Jamestown, New York.
oh wow! I've been to Jamestown, New York.
I know.
And by the way, that reminds me just real quick before we say goodnight. Since you get to Long Island every once in a while, I mean, you really should go make a trip to Sagamore Hill and see Teddy Roosevelt's Long Island home.
Well,
You'll flip out. It's a real I thought it was amazing. Uh, you really should do that. It's a great place to go to.
yep.
All right, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, Joe, enjoying the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use that coupon code.
Summer 2024. I am, according to the executive producer, I am to address the fact that I had a haircut. Yes, yes, Ruben Fairchild, I did get a haircut today. I didn't get a haircut, I got them all cut. Does that make you happy?
Yes.
Okay, I've
That,
addressed that.
and your wife said the same thing. And if you do, you will get
10% off.
not a haircut. That's what you get 10% off if you get the Tempest weather station. Okay, everybody have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35. Bye bye.
Bye, folks.